The anime begins with our protagonist named Haruki Nakano, a young man who lives with his four sisters. He fell asleep with Joy Nakano, his sister, whom he was helping to study, but he was woken up by his alarm. Then we see Uzuki and Satsuki, his younger sisters. He asks for their help to wake up Joy, so they start tickling her. He touches Joy, she wakes up and hits him. Then Mitsuki Nakano, everyone's older sister, enters the room and scolds them for the noise. She warns them to call their mother so that she won't give them their monthly allowance. Then we see Haruki in the bathroom getting ready to go to school. Then his sisters appear annoying him to let them get ready first. At the end, we see the four siblings leaving home for their schools. One night, Haruki is watching a horror movie when he notices eyes outside his door and he gets scared. While Joy was getting undressed, she saw the same eyes through the door of her room. She then opens the door and realizes it is Uzuki and Satsuki. The girls explain that they were doing a homework assignment about their family. Despite their complaints, he tells them to do their homework properly. Then the girls start reading what they will say and start with Haruki. They say that he is the only boy in the family and he is addicted to video games, he doesn't exercise, and he is fearful. They continue with the Joy saying that she is good at sports. They end with Mitsuki saying that she is someone impressive in studies and in sports, being an example for them. At the end of the day, we see the girls go home and say that they got the highest grade. Another day, we see Haruki coming home from class, and when he enters his room, he finds Mitsuki asleep on his bed, wearing only a polo shirt and her uniform skirt. He tries to wake her up, but without success, so he leaves the room. His sisters arrive and Mitsuki appeared in her uniform, but with a dropped sock, so Haruki rushes to fix it, but Joy misunderstands and hits him. The girls go to play, and Mitsuki and Joy go to change. They leave Haruki beaten. At the end of the day, we see that Mitsuki goes to take a shower, and Haruki gives her a towel because he remembers when she forgot her underwear and sent him to get it. But he is spotted by Joy, who ends up hitting him. Haruki goes to his room and sees Mitsuki lying on the bed reading a magazine, and using only the towel he gave her. He complains to her, but she tells him that it is annoying to get dressed as soon as she gets out of the shower and that she'll be there for a while. But then she falls asleep. Then we see everyone shopping in the supermarket. Joy first proposes to buy rice and Haruki accepts, but in the end he finds it difficult to put it in the cart. Then we see Mitsuki and the girls see the free samples and come up to them with cute faces to let them try it, while Mitsuki apologizes for them. In the end though, she tries it too. So they tried each of the different stands, and in one of them they end up getting things for free. Afterwards, they all meet and realize that they had to buy curry, and Haruki says that although he likes spicy curry, they will buy a mild one for the little ones. When they get home, they prepare dinner, and the girls think that it will taste spicy, but in the end they end up liking it because it wasn't. The other day, Satsuki was waiting for Haruki, and when he arrived, he gave her a manga which they both read. He asked her if he could read it first or at least at the same time, but she doesn't want to, so Haruki has to accept whatever she says. Then he sees Uzuki and asks her if she will read that manga, but she says she wouldn't understand it, so Haruki wants her to bother her sister. Then Uzuki corrects him, saying that their teacher taught them not to do bad things, while she put clothespins in his hair. Finally, Satsuki finishes reading, and the two girls go outside to play and leave Haruki with clothespins in his head. After a while, they arrive home and turn on their TV, just as their anime was about to start. Haruki tells Satsuki to move away from the TV because it was too close, but she doesn't listen. Joy explains that when Satsuki concentrates, she doesn't hear anyone. She also tells him that Satsuki knows when the anime starts without even having to watch the time. When this anime ends, the girls go to play in their room. They were playing together and Satsuki says that the promises she makes are quite important. At the end of the day, Satsuki was watching anime, although Haruki was already bored. So he tells Uzuki if she doesn't mind her sister ignoring her, and she replies that she wouldn't do anything that her sister didn't want. Haruki enters his room and sees Mitsuki on his bed in a very sensual position. She tells him that she is going to teach him everything, but he refuses and tells her that he can study alone. She gets sad and explains that she also told Joy and Joy just disappeared. Then we see Joy studying when Haruki appears. She takes the opportunity to tell him to teach her since he teaches well, so Haruki accepts. Joy explains to him that she doesn't understand anything, and he sees her past exams and discovers that her sister's mistakes are in multiplication. So he makes her write down all the multiplication tables on a piece of paper. At that moment, the girls come into the room to say goodbye because they were going to sleep. He wishes them luck on their exam, and they tell him that they got the highest grades on their math exam, making her feel worse. The next day, Joy arrives home and tries to run away from Haruki when he asks her about her exam. Then he holds her back, they stumble, and he falls on her sister. At that moment, Mitsuki arrives and sees them, gets cold and thinks it's her fault because she asked them to get along better. Another day, the girls were in their bathing clothes and told the Joy that they had the swimming lessons and went to school. The Joy tells Mitsuki that she really wants to go to the beach. She explains that it's not hot season, but the Joy has an idea. Then we see that Haruki arrives home and feels that it is so hot. He finds his sister in swimwear and is surprised. At that moment, the Joy hits him, calling him a pervert. She also gets angry with him because last year they didn't go to the beach because he had to take his exams. Haruki tells her that they can go that summer, but Joy tells him that this year it's her turn to take her exams. He was on his way to his room, but Joy gives him his bathing clothes and forces him to change. After this, we notice that the girls have set up an old inflatable pool from when they were kids. They sit in, and even though they can't fit in anymore, they still find a way to have fun. Later, the girls come home to find the three siblings with a bad cold. Satsuki was reading a manga about twins who didn't look alike, so they weren't really sisters. At that moment, Usuki enters and sees her sad, so she says she thinks she is adopted because if they are sisters, they should look alike. Suddenly, Haruki enters the room and sees that his sisters are sad. Satsuki asks him if she is adopted, so he shows them a picture of when they were little, and they were identical, showing them that she was not adopted. Then she starts to wonder why Haruki looks like her father, that Joyce looks like her mother, and Satsuki looks like Mitsuki, but she doesn't look like anyone. So she decides to go into her parents' room and look for proof. Mitsuki arrives and shows her a picture of her grandmother who looked just like her. Later, the Joyce arrives and tells them that her grades were low again and that everyone gets good grades except her, so surely she must be adopted. Another time, we see Usuki run into a Haruki. Satsuki appears and asks her sister what she's doing. She gets nervous and tells her that it's time for dinner, so they go to the table. She sits down next to Haruki and he thinks she put something in his food. So he fearfully began to eat. When Haruki finishes his dinner, he goes to his room to sleep, and when he enters, he sees Usuki, who asks him to read a tale. Haruki is very confused when she accepts that she loves him. At that moment, Satsuki appears and she shows him the anime she was watching the day before, in which a girl was playing a joke on her brother and explains that Usuki was doing the same thing, leaving Haruki relieved. The next day, Usuki confirms the same thing. One night, the protagonist wakes up and finds Mitsuki on top of him. He freaks out, but his sister tells him that she wants to ask him a favor. She wants them to kiss. She explains to him that there was actually a performance at their school, and no one wanted to play the princess, so she agreed, and now she must kiss the prince. But she has never kissed before and doesn't know how to pretend. So they were about to do it and pushed his sister away, telling her that they can do that. She keeps quiet and runs off to her room. After this, Haruki goes to apologize to her, but she turns around with the script or her play in her hand and tells him that there is no kissing scene, that she had mixed up the roles and that's why she ran away. Another night, we see Haruki lying at the door of Joy's room, and when he sees her, he asks for help because he started to feel sick and now he can't go back to his room. She takes him to his room and Haruki tells her that since she has school tomorrow, he should go and rest. She accepts, although she is worried about him. The next day, all the sisters are in the dining room, and the younger ones ask about Haruki. Then Joy tells them that he is sick. In the room, Haruki hears that they all went to study. At that moment, he feels like going to the bathroom, but as he couldn't move, he tries to concentrate so as not to wet the bed. He falls asleep, and when he wakes up, he sees that Joy was looking after him. He thanks her for coming back early and asks her to help him go to the bathroom. Then we see her take off his shirt to wipe off his sweat, and when she gets closer to him, all the others come in and enter the room, looking as if they are kissing. They start to bother her, and she leaves the room angrily trying to explain. But first, she hits her protagonist who falls on his bed. Then we see how the sisters were watching a horror movie and Haruki was playing video games. Then Joy tells him that she wants to play with him and that she also wants to sleep with him. He thinks that his sister was sick and takes her to her room. When he came out, he met the two little girls who took him to the bathroom and wanted him to watch while they were there. He refuses, but they start crying and he finally has to accept. Then Haruki goes back to his room and notices that Mitsuki is asleep in his bed. He tries to wake her up, but she hugs him and puts him between her breasts. Right here, the others enter the room and tell him that they will sleep with him tonight, so they'll lie down on the floor to sleep. He thinks that the idea of them all sleeping together once in a while was not unpleasant for him, so the next day he tells his sister that they can depend on him. But they ignore him and tell him that it's better if they don't watch scary things for a while. That's why they went to sleep with him. Then they all go to the public baths, and the girls are excited to drink coffee with milk, but their sister tells them that they will do it after they take a bath. In the baths, they were taking everything off, and we see how Joy is embarrassed, covering herself with a towel. At that moment, Uzuki runs by and snatches the towel for annoying her. Then we see how they take a shower and enter the pool with hot water, both girls and Haruki. The girls start to celebrate because they can have their coffee with milk, but they get it in a box when they wanted it in a bottle. The lady in the shop tells them that they have recently changed those. Nitsuki tells them that the next time they go to the public baths, they will look for a place that does have coffee in a bottle. Haruki starts to tease her about the size of her breast compared to Mitsuki. The Joy starts running and crying, but at the end of the day, they had a lot of fun.